This week is going to be really great, and it's a video that I've promised for a long time, the SX-70 from Polaroid. The SX-70 was originally released in 1973, and it was $180, and it was $690 for a pack of film. Today, in today's money, that'd be $1,000 for the camera alone and $37 for a pack of film. So film now is even a little bit cheaper than that. It is arguably the most famous Polaroid camera ever, and it's easily the most beautiful. And the really cool thing about this camera is it's really simply built. There's nothing really wild about it. So a simple lens and a simple viewfinder, but the design and the construction is just superb, and it's really beautiful. You can see that the camera is pretty small and you can handle it with one hand. It's actually something you can fit into a big pocket, probably not your pants pocket, but you can, when it's folded down, you can fit on the front of the camera. You're going to see that that's the shutter button right there. This is the focus mechanism right there. So you do have a focus range. It's not automatic. You can choose where you're focusing, which is cool, which Polaroid kind of got rid of later. And this is also something on all Polaroids, a kind of like a darkness lightness. It's not exactly like exposure, but it's a pretty similar idea. Here's the viewfinder. The viewfinder is actually a little bit tricky, so it's actually not that great, but when you figure out how to use it, you can get some really great results, as we'll see later. That is a sync port on the side of the camera. To open the film compartment, you're going to push that button down and simply paste your film in right there. You can use 600 film with this camera, and you can use SX-70 film, so backwards compatible kind of. On the side, when you want to close it, there's a little metal rod right there, and you just kind of push it back, and it'll fold into itself. So, and look how compact that is. That's really gorgeous. When I started looking for images for this camera, I started stumbling upon a lot of great SX-70 images. I probably could have even done a whole video on just the images I found, but this is going to be a couple that I really liked. And the first one comes from Sage B, and she takes these pictures of flowers. I think they're flowers or leaves. I'm not exactly 100% sure, but you're going to see that her composition is really strong. So she has these lighter colored leaves in the front, and then she has some really dark ones in the back, and it's really just catching. And the first time I saw it, I was like, wow, this is really cool. Also, the lines on the flowers kind of added that composition, and her colors are really muted. So one thing we're going to talk about was why the colors are muted and why the colors sometimes looked a little washed out. The original formulations for SX-70 film were done by Polaroid, and when Polaroid stopped developing film, the only way to get film now was from the Impossible project. And the Impossible project, their film wasn't as clean and as sharp as those original Polaroid formulations. So now this new Impossible film has a little bit more of a dreamy quality, has really kind of washed out colors, which is really cool. You're gonna get some really cool artistic effects. So our next photographer, Joep, he took these pictures of these two leaves, and so when you're comparing the colors on the previous photograph and these ones of these leaves, these ones are a lot more vivid and a lot more stronger. And if you ever see leaves in the fall, you realize that when you take pictures of them with the camera, it almost doesn't do them justice. And this is what's kind of happening right here. But the thing I really liked about this one is that the background is totally out of focus, and only this one leaf is really in focus. So it's a really strong composition. He also has this big leaf in the front that you can kind of tell it's there, but it's really out of focus. So a really strong composition, and the colors I thought were just amazing. So really like this one, and it's kind of showing off the ability of the new Impossible film to just give these really dreamy effects. Our next image really plays on this dreamy effect of the Impossible film, and it's from Edwin, and it's a woman looking through a hole, or I think a skylight in an attic. And this image is actually pretty hard to create, so it's really dark, but he kind of nails his composition, and he also nails his exposure. So easily could have been underexposed or overexposed, but I think he got it just right. And I like the colors going on there. So there's like a slight blue in her dress, but then you can see a lot of it's still dark and almost black, but there's some browns in the wood. And I think it really plays on the ability of the Impossible film to kind of have those dreamy colors, and then also dreamy focus too. So a really strong image. I really liked it the first time I saw it. Our next photographer is Natalie, and she does a great job here with colors. So there's three like striking colors: the yellow on that big leaf in the front, there's also the red in her hair, and there's also the green around. And there's also some really cool effects going on with the shadows. She's taking this image under some really big leaves, and the shadows it leaves on her body and on the background are just really interesting. And I think there's a lot of contrast here going on. And the pose the woman's giving is actually really strong, and it's just a greatly composed image. Really like the color use, and it's very striking. This last photographer is just one of my favorite photographers on Flickr and anywhere really. He is a master of the SX-70, and the images they're getting are just really strong and really amazing. I believe he's using the Impossible black and white film. And you're going to see here, these are just really some really great portrait figures. And previously, when I started out taking pictures, I was a portrait photographer, and it's really tough to get people to look comfortable. And it's also kind of tough to get really good poses that are have a really good composition. And Miky does this very, very well. So definitely check him out. This image of the woman with her hands on her head, I believe, is really strong. The composition, I believe, is really cool. So there's kind of like this big triangle in the middle. And then you're going to see his use of contrast is really cool too. Her hair is like a really strong dark point, as is her dress. But there's all these midtones that give more texture and shape to her arms. And then there's a big highlight on her chest. So really just well done. And then on top of that, she looks pretty comfortable, and she doesn't look like this pose is too forced. And if you try to do this pose and took a picture of yourself, it would look super forced. But he's just really good, and he just nails it. And I picked two more of his. The next one is, I believe, the same woman, and on this one you're going to see that the background, he actually makes it a little bit lighter than the previous image, and it works really well. He has a big highlight on her left arm, and on our back is really dark, but there's like this nice curve to it, and she has this kind of look that she's looking back, but it's still pretty natural. So the contrast he's using here are really strong, and the composition again is really strong. His last one, which is a close-up, shows that you can get some really great sharpness out of the SX-70, and you can see that her eyes are in perfect focus. Her hands are in really good focus, and again, he knows what he's doing with composition. There's these big blocks of black, but there's also all these blocks of gray and highlights that really pull the image together. And she has a really natural pose too. So to me, Miky shows that you can get really, really great images out of the SX-70. So with Miky and all the other photographers I featured, please go to Flickr and check them out. These are really great photographers, and this is just a sample of their work, maybe even a small slice of their work. So they have other stuff there, and it's really inspiring, and it's really just cool to learn what they're doing with different types of cameras and different type of techniques. On paper, the SX-70 shouldn't be that great of a camera. It has a pretty simple lens. It doesn't have autofocus. It doesn't have all these really high-tech features that we expect in cameras today, and even at the time, but it just takes really amazing images, and people like the way that it was designed. It was designed well. You can hold it. You can use it well. And when you talk about cameras, a lot of times that's what it comes down to. If you have something you're comfortable with, that you really like, and that looks amazing and works really well, you can do a lot of great stuff with it. So that's the story of the SX-70 for me, that it's this camera that when it came out, people at the time knew it was a classic, and today it's still a classic. So I hope you guys enjoyed that video. I had a lot of fun making it, and remember to like this video and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more. Thank you. Bye.